Okay, so welcome to How to Just Feel Better After Your Rescheduled Wedding. Um, you're here because either you are rescheduling or might be rescheduling or already did it, but either way, COVID has just like wrecked your wedding plans, which sucks. Um, oops, just a second. There we go. My first question, and you can write it down or just keep it in mind, is how do you want to feel? A lot of times, many of us, we realize that we're upset and we know what we don't want, but we don't really spend a lot of time thinking about how do we actually want to feel or what would we like to see happen. So whatever word comes to mind, and you can share it in the chat if you want to, like whatever word comes to mind of how you would like to feel, just jot that down, and that'll be like on your paper, kind of looking back at you while you're taking the rest of this in, and it'll be sort of in the back of your mind while we go along. Um, who am I and why am I teaching this class? So my name is Ryan, and I run a Mindful Bride. And my husband and I have been married for 13 years. And so I help brides reduce stress by shifting their focus back to their marriage so they can plan their epic love story, which is your marriage. So instead of focusing so intently on the wedding, I don't want to take anything away from weddings. Weddings are great. I did stationery for 10 years. So I love weddings, but if a little bit of that focus was shifted over to the future marriage, it just kind of naturally helps to reduce stress levels by default. And so, like I said, we've been married for 13 years. We have two beautiful little daughters and a cute little golden doodle. And she's right over there, and I hope she stays asleep. Her name is Louisa. And this picture of us is my favorite because it's just real life. I think it's hilarious. Like none of us were ready except for our little one. She was perfectly ready and smiling, but the rest of us were still getting set up. I was fixing my hair. Um, and it's just kind of a reminder to me that life can be beautiful even amongst the sort of like crap that gets thrown at us. And so that's why I throw this in here to try to kind of remind us all that it's we can all still have fun and we can still feel good even if things don't go the way that we expect them to. So far in our 13 years, we have lived in 4 states: Kentucky, Florida, North Carolina, and California. We have pursued passions together and supported each other along the way, whatever that looked like at the time. We have traveled across the US 6 times now, the fifth and sixth time being just this past June and July. It was really fun. We visited over 30 states together. Most of those states our girls have been to also, but we did some road tripping before they were born. We've loved each other and gotten stronger through all the ups and downs that come along with marriage. And there will be ups and downs in your marriage. It's a guarantee, but it's how you handle those ups and downs and how you grow together that makes the difference. And when you're having those downtimes, you want to have sort of like a set of tools in your toolbox so that you can help yourself feel better faster and know that it's going to be okay. And then even when you're having those really great times, you don't have to be thinking like, oh, well, the other shoe is going to drop or anything like that, but you'll know it's not going to be perfect all the time, and that's okay. um, and we've also over the years just not given a what about anyone giving us permission to do anything that we want. We live in Southern California right now. All of our family is in the Carolinas, and several of them, not all of them, but a handful have voiced their opinions on what they think about us moving across the country and, taking our girls with us and pursuing careers that we want to pursue. It's been suggested to us that we just go get a job for the telephone company so that you can get a pension, which I don't think pensions exist anymore, but it was an older family member that makes that suggestion pretty much every time we visit. And so after 13 years of marriage, we've learned a thing or two about how to not just make it work and survive, but to thrive and make it epic. We have an amazing relationship, and we're still going strong after that long. And we plan on keeping on for forever. So you can have that too. Excuse me. But first, you have to feel better about your rescheduled wedding. You can't really move forward with anything, even the rest of your planning, until you take care of these emotions that are stuck, because whenever we're upset about anything, it seeps into the rest of our lives. And so we want to make sure that we're not shoving it down and ignoring it. If you stick around until the end, I have a couple of surprises for you. So just hang around for that. And I just want to also mention, you are not your wedding. Sometimes brides get extra excited and attached to the idea that they thought they would have for their wedding. And so when that gets taken away from you, it's almost like part of your identity was taken away from you in a sense. And so if you can start to sort of keep in the back of your mind that you are a separate entity from your actual wedding, then it's helpful, because when something like a pandemic happens, you're still going to be possibly upset and surprised at what's going on, but it may not throw you in such a deep hole if you're able to remember, like, okay, I'm still fine, I'm okay, and I'm not a terrible person or some kind of crazy failure for this happening in the world right now. What was your original? You can share it in the chat if you want. But what was your original wedding date? And then what is the new date? I'm just curious. Is that your Oh, wow. Okay. So you had to push it out a year, Amy. That's tough. A lot of people are doing that. And oddly, a lot of people are having really strong opinions about how you should or should not proceed in a time like this, which to me is insane, because nobody has been through this before. And so nobody should be telling people what they should or should not do. And so it's whatever works for you is the right answer. And if it's what you guys agreed upon, in a sense, that's really good, because you've taken care of kind of the hard decision. So how are you feeling about your wedding right now? You might also be feeling like unheard, because I've noticed that a lot of brides are trying to express their feelings about being sad, but then they will be told by family members or friends or whoever that they shouldn't be sad because there's a pandemic happening. And that's selfish of you if you're just thinking about your own wedding and you're not thinking about the people in the world. It's frustrating because you don't um, you don't know what to do necessarily for every step of the way. And there could be some feelings of like, why is this happening to me? um, which I'm sure every bride has had that thought at some point. And there's probably also like a little bit of hopelessness in there of like, yeah, we have our date, but like you said, none of what we envisioned is going to happen. So that can be really hard. And then, of course, just, all of that together, just being sad about the changes that you're pretty much forced to have made. So you can just let it out, take a big sigh, because it does suck. You don't have to tell yourself, you don't have to pretend, oh, this is great. Or, and, you can ask yourself things like, you can look for the silver lining and that sort of thing. But it's perfectly okay and normal to admit to yourself, I don't like this and I'm upset. So, how you can be feeling all those feelings, or one or two of them, but on some level, however you're feeling about having to reschedule. It's okay, and you are normal. Anyone else that tries to tell you that you should not be upset or to just get over it, or at least you get to get married still, at least you're alive, all that stuff, they just don't know what they're talking about. So we can just leave it at that, and you can kind of just brush that off because it's nonsense. um, I know you wrote this down before, but I just wanted to ask it again just to sort of get your brain moving in that direction of how do you want to feel? Just whatever word comes to your mind, whether it's, happy, at peace, satisfied, content, excited, any of those things, whatever comes to your mind, just if it's the same as what you wrote down before, you can write it down again or if you want, or if not, you don't have to, but it could be a different word that came up this time too. These were just things that you could do in the moment. You get some bad news and you can stop for a second and you can take deep breaths, you can get outside and get some fresh air. Since this is all about weddings, you can do something like take a few minutes to reminisce on how you and your fiance met, or how he proposed, and or when and where and all that kind of stuff. You get that thinking about those things that make you feel good. And you could listen to your favorite song, or you could even take a nap if you have the time and space for that. Another thing that you can do that's like a quick thing, there's an app called Yap, and I'm going to type it in here so you know how it's spelled. I have an iPhone, so I'm not 100% sure it's available in Google Play, but it's a random reminder app, and it's really cool because if you have some ideas, some new thoughts that you want to start reminding yourself to think, even just the question of how do you want to feel, you can put that in this app and tell it how many times you want it to remind you that every day. And I think you can go up to 9, and you can put as many in there as you want. And just every now and then throughout the day, it will show you some of the things that you've put in there. I have a bunch in mind, so it doesn't show me all of mine every single day, but I kind of like that because it gives me enough time to sort of forget that it was there, and be reminded to act on whatever is in there. Like one of mine is stop, take 5 deep breaths, and then think of 3 things that you're grateful for. So it can be anything you want that helps you kind of remember that you can still feel good despite what's happening around you. Oh, there we go. So we'll just go into how to feel better. And so bridal care is super important, and it's self-care. And so I don't know if you are familiar with that term. A lot of times it's said that it's not just pedicures and manicures, it's like the deeper level stuff that's real self-care. But I actually think that it's all across the board. Whatever you do, in a moment to take care of yourself, whatever habits you create for yourself, that you give yourself time and space to feel good and refreshed and fulfilled, any of that stuff can be self-care, as long as it's a healthy thing, where you're not sabotaging yourself or doing damage to your body, like eating tons of candy or something to soothe and numb. Like that's not self-care. But anything that makes you feel good and fulfilled is really good. So self-care is not selfish. There's that saying of, when you're on an airplane, of putting your oxygen mask on first. If you had 7 or 8 people that you were going to put an oxygen mask on for, and you decided to do all of theirs first, you would pass out and you wouldn't have the oxygen that you need. So you want to make sure that you are filling your cup first. And all that means is that you're just taking care of your own well-being before you take on requests and suggestions from other people. So, you're being pulled in a lot of different directions usually with wedding planning, and you need to, even more than normal, make sure that you're giving yourself breaks from wedding planning, that you're giving yourself breaks from wedding conversations, and just taking care of you and making sure that you feel good, um, just, as a habit. And it's a habit that you can carry out past wedding planning and into your life because it's really important. And taking care of others' needs before your own and not filling your own cup first, it leads to burnout and resentment. So if you have people who are making requests of you or throwing their opinions at you constantly, and you don't give yourself a chance to take a break from that, eventually you'll get upset with them and you might even lash out. And then they come back and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you freaked out like that. You're a bridezilla." And that's not what happened. It's just that you kind of let them push and push and push until you just couldn't take it anymore, instead of, taking care of yourself at the very beginning. And the thing about taking care of yourself first is you really do show up better for others, at work, in your marriage, in your social life. If you just take the time to make sure you're feeling good before you go out into the world and interact with others and try to get tasks done and all that, you really show up in a much better way. The next thing is boundaries. And bridal boundaries are especially important because when it comes to weddings and babies, everyone has an opinion and everyone thinks that their opinion is right and that you should take it on. So it's just really important to let that sink in and make sure that you're going to have to start setting some boundaries. You're allowed to say no. No is a complete sentence. If someone makes a request, makes a suggestion, tries to tell you, what colors to pick or what flowers or any of that, unless it's your fiance and you want to have a discussion about it, if it's just some random family member, you're allowed to say no, thank you. You're allowed to just let them know, like, yeah, that's great. I appreciate your input. I'm going to do this instead. Or honestly, you don't even have to tell them, oh yeah, I like your idea, but I'm not going to do it. You just say thank you or no thank you and just move on, and you don't owe people an explanation. I used to be really bad about that, about saying, I could sometimes say no, but then I would feel like I needed to offer this lengthy explanation of why I was saying no. And you really don't have to do that, because it actually gives them an opportunity to try to convince you to not say no. And leading into that, you teach people how to treat you. So if you have, let's say you have a family member who you told them that you wanted them to be in your wedding in some capacity, but you're not sure yet how that's going to look. And so they text you and call you every single day to find out if you've made a decision yet. And every time they text you, every time they call you, you pick up or you answer, text back right away. They will learn that you're always available for them. And so if you have one day where, you left your phone at home or you just decide you don't want to pick it up right then, they will be so upset with you because you're behaving differently than what you have previously done. And this might actually happen as you start to set boundaries, especially if you have things about like texting and phone calls. It's become interesting to me. I didn't feel this way before, but when someone texts me, the idea that I would stop what I'm doing to answer them sounds kind of insane to me now. I keep my phone on do not disturb pretty much all the time, and I will get back to someone, but I will get back to them when I'm done with what I'm doing. Like if someone texted me right now, I'm not going to see it. So it's okay if we don't answer people right away or get back to them right away, especially if you know that they're going to be bothering you a lot. Just even if you're not doing anything, just purposely wait and text them back later. It's really okay. The idea that I should be able to send you a text and have you answer me right back just because I sent it without any regard to what you might be doing at the moment, it's just it's become part of our culture. If you take a step back and kind of look at it, it is kind of weird. Um, so, back when we just had answering machines and regular phones, if it you just didn't pick up the phone if you didn't want to talk to somebody. So, or if it was like in the other room and you didn't want to get up. Um, so also setting boundaries means getting more of what you want, because as you set those boundaries, as you let people know, hey, this is what I will and will not tolerate, you are turning the tables on what you've been getting. If you have that pushy family member that is bothering you all the time, and you start to only respond the next day, or let them know, hey, I'm kind of busy planning my wedding. If you wouldn't mind just like giving me a heads up before you want to talk on the phone, or maybe we can schedule a time to call on the calendar, that sort of thing, because it helps you, without saying, this is what I want and I can't believe this is not happening for me. You just kind of take care of it by setting that boundary. And you, by doing that, you build your confidence. Not only are you building your confidence in setting the boundaries, but you are building your overall confidence in your life. And as you work on, it's not a fast process, but as you work on setting boundaries and telling people no and letting people know what you want, you start to feel better about what you can handle, and how you can speak to people. And I always say to speak with kindness still, because you do want to feel good about your behavior after the fact. So you don't want to sorry. There's a sounds like a fire alarm going off in another part of the building or something. So a smoke alarm, I mean. She's getting a little antsy. Um, hey buddy, sorry about that. So yeah, so setting boundaries means more confidence. And I'll give you an example in my wedding journey, when I did not set a boundary because I didn't know what boundaries were back then. We hired a violinist to play at our ceremony, and I told her the song that I wanted her to play, and she just straight up said, "Nope, I'm going to play this." And she stood up and started playing it in this, preliminary meeting. And my first thought was, oh, well, I guess because she's the professional and I view her as an adult and I don't view myself as an adult, I should just go with what she says because she must know better than me. Well, what I should have done is say, well, that was a beautiful song. However, I do want you to play this other song that I mentioned. And it's totally fine if you don't want to play that. We'll go hire someone else. No hard feelings. That's a really easy way to set a boundary. And because if I had done that, I would have not only had the music at my ceremony that I wanted to walk down the aisle to, but I wouldn't still be talking about it 13 years later, So we have to, it's not easy, especially at first, but it gets easier and easier the more you do it, just like any other habit or skill that you build. The next thing is navigating all of the emotions that you're feeling. So we touched on before, there's lots of different emotions swirling right now over having everything to do with your wedding just shatter around you. But emotions are just signals from the body on how we feel. So we don't want to get upset with ourselves for feeling any certain emotion, because I once heard this and I thought it was really funny. You wouldn't get mad at your body if you got sick and threw up because you ate bad food. So you don't want to get mad at yourself for feeling an emotion that's not fun. If you feel sad, you don't want to get mad at yourself for that, because that's just sort of a way of stuffing it down, which is really unhealthy. And emotions aren't really good or bad. They're just feedback for you to be able to make a different choice. So, a lot of times we equate things like sadness and anger and all those on that side as negative, because they don't feel good. But really, they're just helping you understand, okay, now I know that I don't like this. So what would I like to move towards instead? And so you can you can't really, sometimes we want to just shut out those bad emotions, um, and we don't want to feel them. But just like with so many other things, you can't have light without the dark, and you can't have the good emotions without the bad ones. And there's a balance, and you want to be able to move your way through them, the ones that don't feel good, as fast as you can. But you need to actually process them instead of just stuffing them down. So there's lots of different ways of actually releasing emotions. I mean, it can be as simple as just allowing yourself to be in the emotion that you're feeling. But when we hold them down or we don't acknowledge them, it's like holding a beach ball underwater, which, if you've ever done that, you know that eventually it pops up right in your face. And when it comes to emotions, that pop up in your face could actually be you blowing up at someone that you're really close to, or saying something that you don't mean, or making a decision hurriedly because you're feeling a certain way and you're not giving yourself time to process it. And it could end up being a decision that you're not super happy with later. So, um, high five, because that was a lot. That was a lot to take in. And there were a lot of things there that you may not have known about, but all of that stuff is very, very important. So, now that you're aware of the importance of things like self-care and boundaries, usually boundaries is really just saying no, and all of the, and processing your emotions, what's next is exercises that will keep your awareness heightened around creating new habits that you want to have to be able to make yourself process the emotions and get through them more quickly so that you can get to the ones that feel good again. And once again, just as a reminder, you are not your wedding. You are a separate entity from your wedding. And no matter what happens with your wedding, you are okay. And this is not a failure of any kind. This is not your fault. But just remember to keep yourself separate from your wedding, and to give yourself a break every now and then. So one of the surprises is that after the class, you will be emailed this PDF, and you can print it out as many times as you want. I recommend doing it multiple times, not multiple times a day, but at least once a week for a little while, if not more. It's a way for you to start to reframe your thoughts, and shift your focus. So the questions on the PDF are: how are you feeling about your wedding? You can write down how you're currently feeling, how you want to feel about your wedding, what can you do right now to help yourself feel better, and is there anyone that you need to set a boundary with? And it can be anybody. It can even be your dog. I mean, like, anybody that needs a boundary, where they're smothering you a little bit too much or taking advantage of you in any kind of way. And this will help you sort of start to identify who those people are. And even if it's just a small boundary, like, hey, um, next time you want to talk on the phone, just text me first. That's a boundary for me. It's weird to say, but because we have texting, if someone calls me and they didn't text me first, they didn't email me, I have no idea why they're calling, I'm probably not going to answer, because I have a family and I have uh, things to do, and I can't just drop what I'm doing for a random unexpected call. So, and the last one is a little bit of a more loaded question. Might take you a little bit more time to think about, but what would your ideal wedding look like? And the reason why you do this is to get yourself visualizing what you would love to have happen. And you don't want to allow the buts to come in of, well, but this happened, or but that is happening. Just take into account where you're at now, where your new date is, and just imagine the best possible scenario for that new day. And when you start doing that, and you do it more than once, you'll start to see where things will just sort of start to work out for things to go more your way than not. and you'll find more reasons to be excited about your wedding than to be sad about it being on a different day than what you originally planned. You might have come today because of maybe you felt like no one was listening. Maybe you just wanted to be allowed to feel your feelings and not be shamed or guilted for it. Or maybe you wanted to learn to take better care of yourself because you found yourself being upset so often, you realized that something just needed to change. Whatever the reason is, um, you've learned the basics, and you're now aware of the importance of self-care, those boundaries, and the emotions, and you'll be ready to dive deeper, and with all that stuff in place, kick ass and take some names too. You are invited to join the Blissfully Engaged Workshop Rescheduling Edition. It's going to be really great. Basically, you can sign up at blissfullyengaged.com, and I will put that in the chat, so hopefully it will be clickable. But it's blissfullyengaged.com, and what you're going to learn, all the stuff that we talked about today, just everything we're going to dive deeper in, and we're going to actually do some of the things and implement some of the things right within the workshop. So techniques that are effective in reducing stress, and you can get back to actually enjoying your wedding planning like you should. And you'll be able to, like I mentioned earlier, just brush the dirt off, because you won't be so worried about people who are trying to boss you around or steal your energy. And you'll learn how to make your own decisions and still feel good. That's where the boundaries piece comes in. And you could always keep doing what you were doing before, but I just want to ask how that's working out for you, because it's probably not been super great. And if you have a way to learn about how to handle things in a better way that's healthier for you and feels really good, it'd be a good idea to get into that. So you can agonize over every decision that needs to be made around your wedding and just like grind through it. Or in the 90-minute workshop, you can learn how to process the emotions. You can learn how to reduce stress so that you can enjoy planning your wedding again. And being blissfully engaged means taking what you've learned today and implementing it to get the maximum benefit, which is feeling good about your wedding plans instead of just doing it to get it done. Because you want to get back to a place of actually enjoying yourself and looking forward to the wedding instead of looking back at what it was going to be. And you want to be able to look forward to what's to come. And also, I mean, everyone is looking forward to their marriage, but you want to add that in as well. So you want to be able to really look ahead at what the plan is now, instead of continuing to look backwards at what might have happened if COVID hadn't exploded on the planet. This is one of the brides that I have recently helped, and just move this out of the way so I can read it. She said, "I just appreciated hearing someone say that it's okay for me to feel disappointed, gutted, and angry about the situation we're in. And that just because I'm feeling this way doesn't mean I'm acting out or being selfish when there are obviously larger, more serious issues going on in this current environment." Janelle was originally supposed to get married April 3rd. So she, yeah, she was one of the brides who had to reschedule very early on. And that was really, really difficult at first, but she kind of got past that. So this is the screen that you'll see when you go to order. Normally the price is $197, but if you order between now and Saturday at midnight, there'll be a $50 discount, so it'll be $147. So you want to make sure you grab a seat and grab your deal. And then once you register, you'll get a confirmation email for placing your order, and you will also, in a different email, get your registration information as well, like the link to the workshop and what to bring and that sort of thing. So that is the workshop, and it's at blissfullyengaged.com. And that was everything I had. So if you have any questions, you can either ask me now or you can email me. My email is down there on the screen.